I'm Rachel Alday, and this is the Hospitality Break Room, a podcast full of nuggets and secret sauce, where every Monday we'll shed light on what we've learned from the countless mistakes we've made along our journey in the chaotic and rewarding world of vacation rentals. Hello, and welcome back to the Hospitality Break Room. I'm here today with Brandon from our Abode team in Sun Valley, and really, he is the Abode team in Sun Valley. And Brandon has been with Abode for over a year now?
Just over
a year. How many months? Is it like 13 months?
11.
11. Okay, so just at a year.
Yeah.
Whoa, I thought we were past the year mark.
October.
Holy moly.
Mid-October.
Okay. Wait, mid-October means we're like 14.
About 5 weeks.
Okay, so we're, right? October, then, so we're at like 13 months, right? One more than a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, we are
Sorry.
over.
My math is not good.
It's okay. My math is terrible, and you just made me feel good about it. Okay, so Brandon was in property management for 5 years.
5 years association management.
Okay, in association management before he joined us. And so we started our Sun Valley office like right when Brandon started with us. So it's been just about a year. And Brandon is like lifetime local, basically in Sun Valley.
Yep.
And that's definitely something that we strive to do when we have moved into a new market. And it's not like we expand in markets all the time, but when we expanded into Jackson Hole, our first 2 employees had been in Jackson Hole, each of them for over 10 years. And now with Sun Valley, we were so lucky to find Brandon, someone who's been in Sun Valley for so long. And so our Sun Valley operation started with one house because we opened up in Sun Valley because we had a homeowner reach out to us. They knew one of our Park City homeowners, and they asked if we would start our operation in Sun Valley as well. And so that's how we began it. But now, how many houses?
We will be onboarding our 10th property beginning Monday.
Okay.
So.
Okay. I thought we were, I don't know, in my head, I was like, I thought we were at 12. But you know what? It's really confusing because I feel like I'm watching from afar at this point. Brandon has this handle really well, along with other people on our team. So I'm not like in every conversation just because you've got it. Mm-hmm. And so, but I've been seeing, because there's like 2 more in the hopper, maybe? Or
there's potential for at least 2 more, if not 3.
Okay, cool. And does 10 count the new one that has the main house with the guest houses?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Which is like, we just took on a really cool property, which is like kind of one of our specialties in Abode. Mm-hmm. That's kind of like an enclave or like a compound type property. Okay, but so before we get into that, do you want to talk about what your background is before Abode and how you feel like it's working out well? Because these episodes that we've been recording recently, we're kind of directing them to people who are in our industry. So I think it's probably helpful for people to hear what you did before you worked in vacation rental property management and like how that's been helpful for what you've been doing with Abode for the last year.
Okay. I actually got my start as a special education teacher then got my board certification in behavior analyst. So looking at behaviors from the point of communication, what the behavior is trying to communicate.
Which, like, that is so seriously spot on when you talk about vacation rental and like guest services.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think, but right?
No. So the biggest takeaway from that into any kind of, I want to say customer relations, but I take it even further than that. It's really kind of that skill set is applied through all aspects of life, because it's sometimes the message isn't just the words, but it's also in looking at how it's being said and looking some of those non-verbal cues. And so, there'll be a time when guests will come up and they're not mad, but they're a little upset. And so you just can try to take it extra steps without that. They would never complain, but you can take an extra step where they've just forgotten about everything. So it's reading those nonverbal cues and then how to communicate at each person at an individual level has been key, and not just my previous life or with Sun Valley Company or with Abode or anything like that. But it plays itself out in every relationship I have.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's crazy to think like a special education type background and training, that would be something to look for when hiring for someone in hospitality. Put on, like, not to be funny, but like we deal with such demanding personalities that like it's amazingly spot on.
And it's not just the guest relations, it's your relationships with your vendors so that they're willing
Yeah.
to drop everything on the drop of a hat to help you out. And vendors can be like the electricians, but not just them, but our concierge vendors as well, who now will, I've gotten to know well enough that if I ask an electrician, I need something, and they'll go do that. That'll be the priority.
Yeah. It's like, because we always say we like to hire people that have been in the restaurant business. And like, funny enough, we don't have that many people that work here from that. But I used to say in the old days that I thought that would be a great place to hire people, because people in the rest, like that are servers, I feel like they're used to, you know, high stress, solving problems quickly, demanding stuff, you know. But I also feel like this is something interesting that like if someone's in the vacation rental industry and they're in a role where they're going to be hiring people, especially people that are going to be guest facing or homeowner facing, like it's not a terrible thing to look for someone who's been in teaching and or specifically special ed teaching, because like those are, like you said, you're learning about nonverbal cues because potentially people in special education may be nonverbal. So you're looking to read people's nonverbal cues, which is like massive for guest services.
Well, and it's reading things like, we had an owner a couple of weeks ago, and he goes, "Hey, this blanket's fantastic. We love it. Blah 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 blah. The kids are fighting over it." So you just take that, even though he's not mad, and you just take him a second blanket.
Yeah.
All I do is just say something like, "I just don't want to be the reason your kids are fighting."
Yeah.
So you know, it's just reading
So
those
true.
kinds of
Brandon, I didn't know you
basic
did that. That's so good.
cues. So
That's so good.
Yeah.
See, okay. Brandon's amazing. Okay, that is such a good point. So that's secret sauce right there. Yeah, that's like really, really interesting. Okay. All right. So you were working, well, you had studied that, you had a job in that, and then what?
And then I went to association management and learned all about the nightmare that is running condo associations and managing contracts and the politics and all of that. And that actually played itself. I'm now more than I probably care to be politically involved in the city of Ketchum. For
It's been a whole thing.
some positive and some negative.
Yeah.
reasons. So,
Well, it'll be, I think it'll be a positive, it'll end well, because,
It
you know, if we allow good things to happen, eventually they will, as long as we live long enough. But I think also, well, obviously Brandon's background with property management and or like association management is huge, because number one, I think that's crazy training. Like that's very high level, you know, like special forces level training in negotiation and conflict management, because HOAs are by their very nature extremely high in conflict. Yeah,
absolutely.
Especially in these like really expensive real estate locations where you've got like a ton of attorneys on every board, and you know, that's just whatever, that is what it is. Like I'm not trying to generalize, but let's just face it.
It is.
Yeah. And so I think having multiple years background in that, we knew was going to be like really helpful. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I also really love that your background involved working for Sun Valley Lodging. Is that the company that always helped? Because Sun Valley Lodging is, for everyone that doesn't know, so Sun Valley as a place is like this very cool, we should probably talk about this a little too, but like Sun Valley is like not as well known as say like Park City, Jackson Hole, Vail, which is weird because it's more OG. Like it was a bigger deal a while back.
So Sun Valley was where the first NIF was invented.
Okay. Tell us everything.
So in 1940, whatever. And so it became sort of an unknown destination vacation playground, especially in the winter.
Like a secret.
For like
gem.
Glenn Miller and Marilyn Monroe's, there's got a movie there and some of that. So some of that's continued. The Sun Valley Company is basically the resort. So it's the lodge, it's the inn, it's the spa, it's the ski resort.
Right.
It entails
It's
all
unique.
of that.
I mean,
it is very unique. It's very isolated.
It's sort of like Vail, except for if Vail did not like go take over everything else, right?
It's sort of like Vail without being contentious.
Yeah. Or like Vail if they didn't go like epic. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because it's like Vail went in, Vail was the company, Vail was the ski mountain, it was the town. But then they grew, and corporate money, and it changed. Whereas like Sun Valley, same concept.
Yep.
But didn't, just stayed that, which I mean, that fits with the Bode so well. I feel like it's like,
Right.
what if you just do one thing, you just do it really well, and like that's enough, and you just do a
Right.
good job at that forever.
And some of
More
the,
old-fashioned.
and now Sun Valley is now also as just as known for a summer resort now with all the music festivals and things.
Sun Valley has like a crazy gorgeous music shell
yeah,
and like a festival that's well known and well respected.
and it's free.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And so to me, one of the advantages, it's not right on a freeway.
Right.
Vale's right on I-70.
True.
Park City's right on I-80.
Yep.
Sun Valley, the nearest freeway entrance is just over an hour away. It's not difficult to get into, but it is an extra stop typically to fly into that people aren't willing to do. Or there's a little extra work involved, which tends to keep people away. Other than that, it's the nearest metropolitan would be Boise, which is 2.5 hours.
Well, it's like the vibes on it are just more private and secret or something, because like Jackson Hole to me is the same kind of access or actually worse access, right? Like Jackson Hole has passes to get to it and they close all the time. Jackson Hole has an airport, similar type connections as Sun Valley, but people treat Sun Valley like it's in quotes so hard to get into, so hard to get to, but yet like it's flat roads to get into Sun Valley. So it's like you can easily drive there from Boise, Salt Lake, I don't know, Idaho Falls, like whatever. It's
I mean, Portland, Seattle would be about the farthest, would be about 10 hours. 12
right.
hours.
So it's like not a bad drive, and it's not like they closed the road, you know. And actually, I love driving there. And then the flights, the flights I think probably like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 beyond, they got canceled more often. But now they've solved that. Like the flights are pretty no big deal. Yeah, I haven't been canceled.
Correct.
Not
They've
recently.
updated all the radar equipment in the tower, and so they used to have to divert people a lot more often to Twin Falls. That is I don't want to say it's never, but it's rare now.
Yeah. So like Sun Valley is this place that is definitely not harder to get to than Jackson Hole or really Vail or Aspen or any of that. Like same level of difficulty to get there, yet people consider it more isolated, and it's really not. But it's like one of those places where it was really big, let's say back in the 40s and 50s. And then for whatever reason, probably having to do with marketing and probably having to do with Vail coming in at a certain point and like other resorts opening, that it's like it got less attention since then. And so it's kind of stuck. Like it's kind of like in that era, which is literally why it's so amazing. Because I feel like you go to these other places, they're super modernized, they're overcrowded. I mean, look, I'm not hating on Park City or Jackson. These are my places, or Colorado. These are all amazing places, but they're more crowded now, especially after COVID. And while Sun Valley is like slightly more crowded after COVID, it's still OG. It feels old-fashioned OG style skiing there.
I moved back to Sun Valley 5 years ago, and there was just enough of the old from growing up that I knew that it still felt like home. And even now, it's the only place that's really ever felt like home to me. To me.
No, totally. Which I could see, because it just, I began going there for a job I had a long time ago, like 15 years ago. And it really, I know there's some things like Christina's and there's some stuff, like some restaurants and stuff that's not there anymore, but like it still has that feel.
Right.
And while some of those mainstay shops or restaurants may have changed hands or changed names, like the place looks the same. It feels the same. And I do think a lot of that can be attributed to that Sun Valley Lodging and that ownership group just being the same and holding down that same concept and look and feel. It makes such a difference. So anyway, look at me. I do this all the time. I will start talking on a topic and I go like way out in a circle and come back. So that was me. I was like really going to say that we're very proud that we were able to hire Brandon with his background from Sun Valley Lodging, because I think that's a very strong background in general, but especially in Sun Valley. And I think that's because, we love a family business. We love doing things kind of old-fashioned style. And I feel like that's what you got with the kind of the culture of some of it that was with Sun Valley Resort or Sun Valley Lodging. And so having you have that background was like so perfect. And it's also part of what makes up the culture of Sun Valley that I think, I'm not trying to do like a whole commercial for Sun Valley, but kind of, because our 3 listeners, like maybe my mom and maybe like your girlfriend and Helen's mom or something, I think everyone needs to know Sun Valley really is such a cool spot. Like it's just so much more laid back, real. It's like it doesn't get so much snow or like so cold that it's like maybe like Jackson where you kind of can't get around because it's so icy. It's like it has more of that temperate thing going, like Park City, where it's like you're not going to fall on your butt. But it has snow. The mountain is like open and rolling, like really good skiing. and you can still go to old restaurants that are
Yeah.
like kind of funky but still nice and right.
Yeah, and the geography of Sun Valley, it's a very small. It's Sun Valley, so it's a valley, but it's this very small, tight geographic bowl.
Mhm.
And so there's just not a ton of space for a lot of the sprawl you see in some other mountain resorts, which is, and they've done a really great job. Like one of the things you'll see, well, since they've got to start, you won't see anymore, but they had a sign that said, when you come to Sun Valley, let Sun Valley change you, don't change Sun Valley.
Yeah.
And that's so much the culture and what the way Abode marketed it. It's very much a pizza and beer town where
Uh-huh.
if you develop those relationships, we had a guy do some work in the office and he saw that I had a cabin of alcohol that had been left behind by guests, and he didn't charge us a dime. He just said, "Can I have some of this?" And so
I didn't
it's
even know
very
that.
much, it's just,
Yeah.
it's
old
it's
school.
just that kind of
Service
it's that
trade.
kind of town.
Yeah.
And but then you can also go into Christiania and you'll see a Hollywood actor holding court as though he's been a local forever. And
Right,
it's
I saw Arnold Schwarzenegger having breakfast at the table next to me like a few months ago. I know, I'm sure I told you that, but it was like insane. We were like, we had our kids with us, and we were at Sun Valley Lodge staying, and we just went for easy breakfast like the last day we were about to leave.
Yeah.
Come back to Park City, and I look over, and there he is.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
Yeah.
And it was super laid back, and there was no security, and there was no one like telling us
Yeah.
like, don't look over there. It was just like nothing. Like nobody acted like. I love that.
Yeah, we saw, this is years ago. We saw Arnold Schwarzenegger and Maria Schreiber on the ice rink behind something.
Oh, I believe that. Yeah.
And so she was in the corner sitting down with the kids, but he's on the ice, and there's like this bubble of like 12 feet where nobody wanted to get closer than that to him.
Oh, they were
And
scared.
he's just skating around with his hands in his pockets with a hockey puck.
Oh my God, I love
And
it.
it was hysterical. So
That's awesome.
And Clint Eastwood will hold court in Warm Springs Lawn after skiing a couple runs.
Yeah.
And they very much have become a part of the community in the most positive way.
Mhm.
And the way that, long story to parlay that into what Abode did, the way they handled it is, getting to know the real estate agents and some of the vendors and everything, to where the real estate agents would never recognize that Abode was an outside company now.
Right.
And that has been,
Well, we have to go like really slow
Yeah.
when we come into a new market. And
Yeah.
we've done that.
and so now we have, the bulk of our properties now from real estate agents.
You're right.
we've built
Yeah.
relationships with.
Which is like not really our approach all the time.
No.
But in Sun Valley, it has been crazy welcoming.
Mhm.
Like, I'm not trying to tell everyone out there to like come over to Sun Valley and open a property management company, because there's kind of a lot of good companies already, like before we got there. But I will say it's been way more welcoming than it was in Jackson Hole.
Mhm.
And, there's a lot of reasons for a lot of things, and that could have been timing and all kinds of stuff. But I will say, now we feel really comfortable and we love Jackson Hole, but it took literally 10 years for anyone to consider us like a part of Jackson. We were like, that's a Park City company that came here. And now over all these 10 years plus, it's changed. But Sun Valley, it was like a few months in.
Yeah.
And we were pretty welcomed, with an exception.
Yeah.
We've had like some issues like with our like business license, and like, kind of getting cock blocked by being able, like, where we're going to have our office, and just like, I feel like maybe, and I don't know if that's like potentially, maybe some of the companies that are big that are in that town or whatever, maybe they're trying to push to, they don't want us there. I'm not sure. Or maybe it's just like, small ski town bureaucracy, which is completely a thing. And like, I totally get that. And we know that, like, we're used to that. Park City, Jackson Hole, these towns have a lot of people in the city council, the county council, or the county commission, or whatever, that are trying to really make sure that these places stay the way they are and they don't get ruined.
Mhm.
And I feel that, like, we're all for that.
Right.
We're not like Vacasa or like a big company. We don't want to manage hundreds of properties, in a place with just a few thousand properties available. Like, we only want to take, I don't know, end up with maybe like 50 or whatever that are the best ones. And we want to manage those and specifically carefully select the right guests to come and stay in those houses, to treat that place with respect,
Mhm.
and, to show those people authentic experiences
Mhm.
that are true to the location. but I do understand the fear that comes behind city councils and planning commissions.
Mhm.
And so I get like why people act the way they do, although sometimes I'm kind of like, man, throw me a bone here. But
Yeah.
I feel like Brandon has done amazing work. And I don't know if you realize that you were so good at this, but he's just been really good at building relationships within the community. And some he already had, and some he's built newly in order to help us to communicate, what our motives are, what we're trying to do, so that we can be more readily accepted by those planning commissions and allowed to do business, and so that they understand where we're coming from, and like that we don't want to be harmful. We don't want to take any potential employee housing off the table.
Mhm.
I don't know. What do you think about that?
I didn't catch that. I'm sorry.
Just like, how do you feel about like how it's been going with the relationships that like you've built, like, and how you feel? I mean, I feel like you've done such a good job. But
Yeah. So there's two. I've been on both sides of that workforce housing debate now up there, and understanding the whole way that there's a much bigger, in my opinion, political game to play, to where the Ketchum City Council and the mayor, whomever, they may hate all short-term rental companies, but they like us. I think there's a game there to be played that I'm trying to, and
or
don't
maybe
know how
we
it's
can
gonna
help them, like through showing them through our example that like maybe they don't have to hate anyone, or
Right.
at least not hate the people that are going to follow the rules and that are not trying to hurt potential employee housing.
Right, and that's probably not a too strong language, but it's being able to show the city that I put together a plan to help St. Luke's with their stuff. And
What's
that
St. Luke's?
St. Luke's is the hospital.
Okay. I just
Uh,
wanted everyone else to know too.
yeah, so they had some housing needs, and we put together a proposal. So I can go to the council and say, hey, we are actively involved and want to be a part of the solution, and believe that we can.
Have we been looking at like giving a percentage? I know that's something that we do in Jackson. Have we talked about that?
Haven't.
That's something that I want to talk about in Sun Valley too. Is like we committed, I forget, but it's a small percentage, like it's like 1% or 2% or something of our revenue in Jackson Hole to a housing trust in order to help support the building of employee housing. And maybe that's something we could do with St. Luke's.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's just, so to give you an example, up in Sun Valley, it's for a studio of about 700 square feet, you're probably looking at $1,300 a month rent.
Right.
After that, it's at least $1,100 to $1,300 per bedroom.
Which like that can be considered, I think, somewhat in quotes, again, affordable as compared to other ski towns. But I also think it's important to note that like the hourly rates of payment or like salaries in Sun Valley are not as high as Jackson Hole or Park City or a lot of ski towns, because Sun Valley really is more sort of old fashioned and not on the front of all these really high rates to pay people, and therefore really high rates to pay for lodging.
Right.
The $1,300 or $1,800 or whatever, like if that was Park City or Jackson, that might be considered like extremely affordable. But I think for Sun Valley, that's a lot because the hourly rates are not the same.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's walking. There's just some real challenges and really pretty much every mountain resort.
Yeah.
And
it's unique, like to each location.
Yeah, but that's the political game I would encourage anybody in the city to play is don't just go in with guns blazing trying to take over, but go in and try to be a partner more than an adversary.
Yeah.
To whatever town you're in.
Do you feel like we've been able to do that, or like through what you've done that you've been able to do that?
I think the most honest way I could answer that is the groundwork's laid.
Yeah. Well, it's a process.
Yeah. So,
you can't just say one thing, do one thing, and expect everyone to see that. It's like you have to show a track record of saying the things and actually doing the things, right? And that takes more than a year.
But to go to a council meeting and talk to the recorder, because I had to leave early, but to tell the recorder just, hey, I want you to know that we're in favor of this extra lot tax for workforce housing.
Yeah. And
none of the other property management companies that were there were all completely against. So to be able to tell that privately to her and see her eyes just get, the size of softballs.
Yeah.
Was, I think that's a really, really good place to start.
It is. Yeah. Because to me, it's like, as people that are managing or owning businesses, it really should be our role to participate in the betterment of the society or the place where we operate. And sometimes that means less taxes, but sometimes it means more because sometimes that society needs more and the money's got to come from somewhere. And if that means taxing the business that we're in, and that means that we are going to have to pay higher taxes, or we're going to have to charge higher rates, like, and that might hurt our business. Like, it's, I think at times, not always, but it can be worth it.
And the guests, for the most part, correct me if I'm wrong, but the guests, for the most part, they're not going to worry about an extra $300 on their bill.
I don't think they are. And
they're
look,
already spending.
We have
X
the
amount of
luxury of being in luxury, right? We have the luxury of working with properties that have very high nightly rates, so that an extra $300 is not a game changer. And I do think that that's a differentiator in some ways. But, you know, if you are lucky enough to work at the end of the industry where the rates are high, then you should be able to share, like, to be generous with that luck that you have and share it back to the place, right? I mean,
right. So, you know, and I can say, at least, I don't want to speak to the other markets, but I can say in Sun Valley, of the events that Abode has sponsored,
we sponsored like a really cool pickleball tournament, right?
Yeah.
It was like Andrew, who was there?
John McEnroe.
Oh, John McEnroe. I almost said the wrong name.
Okay. Mats Wielander, who lives in Sun Valley.
So cool.
Put it together. Yeah.
And people have like really generously brought opportunities like that for us to donate to cool events. Whereas like potentially in other towns, we would have been kind of blackballed for being able to participate. Where in Sun Valley, again, everyone's been so open arms.
Right.
They bring us those chances.
So, and that's what I'd say is that, you know, the banners that these places people have put up, the Abode name is the only short-term rental management company name on those banners.
Right.
So it's, you know, sort of a discreet way of putting the Abode name in front of anybody. And ours is the only name on there.
I mean, that's a testament to the town, but also to you, I think. And again, I mean, this is back to some secret sauce here. I think for other company owners or managers, when they're opening up a branch of their company in a new town, I think it's really important to think about hiring long-term locals. Because it's like, I always talk about authenticity and how like vacation rentals, one of the things we have as a one-up on hotels when people are choosing where they're going to stay is authenticity. Like a hotel, it's really cool that, you know, when you stay, like you could go to a Hyatt in Park City, you could go to a Hyatt in Tokyo, and if they're like the same level Hyatt, you know what you're getting, right? But if you go to a vacation rental, like what you know you're getting is maybe not as consistent as Hyatt to Hyatt, but hopefully what you know you're getting is authenticity of place. Like this is a home that was built in that place for a person to live in at least part-time in that place. And so you have that more authenticity of like what it's like to have a second home in that place, like Sun Valley. And I think, you know, that's authenticity is so key. And you can't really be authentic if you're not hiring someone who really gets that place. And that's the person who's dealing with your guests and your homeowners. You're just not sharing authenticity, right? Without that. And so I think that's secret sauce. It's like if someone's starting, let's say they have whatever vacation rental, and let's say they're in the Southeast and they're expanding from, you know, North Carolina to South Carolina or whatever. It's like looking at really making sure that you're hiring people that live in that small resort town where you're opening. I think it makes a huge difference. Like that's why we're so grateful for you.
And well, and so thank you.
You're welcome.
I just don't, it's been very much a partnership. I'm certainly not doing it alone. And I certainly have never felt like I'm on an island. So kudos.
I'm glad.
But I also will say, as far as the relationship building, part of that too is especially, and it's magnified in a small town, is, you know, Sun Valley, Ketchum, there may be 8,000 residents that live there year round, if that. I think I'm highballing it by quite a bit. You know, there's 4 painting companies, and yes, they're competitors, but they're also sitting at the bar just talking about whatever. And so if you burn one bridge with one of those guys, you burn them all, because there's plenty of work going around. And so you really don't want, for instance, say we have an association that burned a bridge with a painter, and the only painting company that they could get come and do their exterior was out of Salt Lake. So now they've got to pay the painting cost plus the lodging and all this stuff, when in reality, if they'd have just treated the companies right locally, it would have been so much easier.
And that mentality is something that you derive from like living in a small town like Sun Valley. And so again, it's like you can't always teach a person who is maybe living in Chicago and then it's going to like they're working for some company and then they're going to move out to Sun Valley to go work at the Hyatt in Sun Valley. They may not be able to bring, like they just couldn't possibly bring the right mentality because they haven't lived it.
Right.
Whereas like you've lived it.
Right.
And so it's not like you're not trying.
Right.
It's just the way you are. And so then that comes across to the locals, to the people you're working with within the city government, to the guests, to the homeowners. It makes 1,000% difference.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe that's the lesson to be learned like from this episode for people is, you know, when expanding into a market, that having a person or people, when you're starting that team, to have them be longtime locals, like that's how you're going to bring the authenticity, and that's how you're going to have that location for your company be authentic to that place. Because when you try to like, you know, when we started in Park City and we go to Sun Valley, it's like people they want to feel authentic Sun Valley. They don't want to feel Park City and Sun Valley. Nobody wants that.
Right. So Miles and I were on a call yesterday with a prospective owner.
Yeah.
For another property.
Yeah.
Which is great. But one of the things that she was fairly excited about is she's like, so asking me personally, what am I doing when I have greet guests at the door? And it's like, I don't offer it, but if somebody asks a question, I'll say, oh yeah, best day ever if you really want to do it. And I do it 4 or 5 times a year.
Yeah.
So it's from a personal perspective. And it's, hey, park your car, take your swimsuit and towel in your car, go ski for the day, go get a burger at Apple's, walk 200 yards up the river, and you're in a hot springs.
Yeah.
And so when I told the owner that those are the kinds of
you'd like tell them like what to order at Roundhouse or whatever.
Yeah, get the fondue at Roundhouse or make sure you get the private at the Pio, whatever. And so, you know, there's been a lot of real value in being able to do those things, or even just taking up fly fishing. Hey, I've had great luck up at this spot. I can say exactly where to park and exactly where to walk to and exactly where the log to throw.
And that's everything.
And that's, you know, the guests love that. And for a company that really wants to focus on not just the luxury accommodations, but the experiences or the experiential opportunities is huge for that stuff.
I agree. Okay, this is so good. Like, I feel like we just covered so much by accident. Brandon and I like barely planned before we started talking. That's mostly my fault.
I just happened to be here.
Right. But like, I feel like we covered really good stuff. This happens all the time. It's like this old table that I bought at a vintage store in LA. It's like it has like magic powers, because I swear we sit down and then we end up with such good topics without trying. It's so good.
Yeah.
Okay. So Helen and I came up with a plan to like, you're our 10th episode. Is that right? Mm-hmm. So this is our 10th episode. Okay. So that means I think we're going to complete our first season with this episode. Okay. So you're like the grand finale. Woo-hoo! Yeah. Fireworks. And then I think we're gonna start it like right away, like next week probably, but we're gonna do another 10 episodes now, because these first 10 have been focused on like sort of speaking in a way where we're kind of thinking about as if other people from other companies are listening. And now we want to do like another 10 episodes where as if homeowners are listening. So even like we'll talk to the same people, but do it as if we're talking to homeowners. So when are you in town, Jill?
Saturday. Tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow. Okay. Well, you'll have to come back soon. I know you want to, because you've had a good time.
Have a great time.
because I feel like we have to do another episode now talking about, because I feel like you have such good experience and stories to tell about dealing with homeowners. Sure. Right. And so, anyways, that's going to be our next round of episodes.
To talk about how we just got this property on board tomorrow.
Okay. Is this the one with the compound? Yeah. Okay. It's such a good story.
Came up so organically.
Right? Okay. All right. So we're going to do that. So anyway, okay. So this is crazy because like Brandon just randomly happened into this episode, but here it is, our season finale of our first 10 episodes. And he's bringing us one of our top ideas for the next season. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you are listening, all, I don't know, 7 of you, whatever, get excited, because Brandon obviously had a lot to share just now, but he has a lot more to share when it comes to talking to a homeowner. And so does the rest of our team. So, strap on your Christmas lights, because the season is coming, and get ready, because that's going to be the next group of things that we talk about is a lot of things related to what a homeowner might want to hear. So I hope everyone is putting up their wreaths, decorating their Christmas tree, or putting up their menorah, or getting ready for Kwanzaa, whatever the case may be, or whatever your holiday is. And we will see you next time on our next episode of the Hospitality Break Room.